Hey there folks, and welcome back to Skullmonkeys. Today we'll be handling the Yent Eggs level. Yent Eggs is the final level in the set of Yint levels for this game, and it does not mess around. Besides introducing a brand new climbing mechanic, it also has a series of very difficult jumps. Now with climbing, Klay can either move up or down the vine slowly by straddling it, or you can just press the jump button and move up it much faster. And as I mentioned, this level has very many difficult jumps. This jump right here in particular, which shows up a couple times for this pattern of Yints, is very hard for me to pull off correctly. In fact, I never can get the timing quite right, so it's like a 50-50 chance of me screwing it up and taking a hit. And right here, I'm taking some unnecessary risks, as going for those clay balls just means more of a chance of you getting hit by those flying Yints. Nothing really up there for us to look at, so we can just skip those Yints. But in general, it's very hard for me to pinpoint any section of this level that I can say, oh yeah, that's the hard part. In general, this whole level is the hard part. And in my opinion, it's probably either the second or third hardest level in the entire game. These climbing sections start off very easy and get worse and worse as we go through the worlds, or the levels. Yint patrol patterns will get wider and tighter. And I took out that one Yint just to give myself a little break. Usually I do not want to use the gun, but I will be using it in situations where I feel like I really can't do it without using it, or I can't guarantee that I'll get through it just fine. And recording these levels took me forever, so every so often I'll shoot a couple of Yints to give myself a little break. But that is it for the first section. Just 3 more to go. And some free birdies, homing pigeons, whatever they're called. Phoenix hands, I think, is the official term for them. And here is part 2, where we're introduced to the Yints on the platforms moving horizontally. That's also our only secret for this whole world. There's another one of those really fun jumps that I'm really bad at. And there's some blue worker Yints there that just simply show up for the person only and then never come back again. I'm not sure why they're there, maybe just to confuse you a little bit, as you'll have those horizontal moving Yints on platforms and you might think you can jump on them because you can jump on those blue guys, but no, you can't. Those Yints moving in a circular pattern are actually very easy to deal with, but they tend to get teamed up with other obstacles afterwards, so timing becomes trickier. Like right here, where they position a horizontal moving Yint right next to one of those guys. That life's actually pretty easy to get. The hard part of this level is mostly just dealing with hitboxes. And I shot that guy too. Well, not just the hitboxes. The hitboxes are hard on the vines. The jumps themselves are made to be fairly sadistic in some places, where enemy placement is in such a location where if you're not careful you will get hit, and in fact that's what it's hoping will happen. But the hitboxes on the vines is what matters, because you're not always too sure when you're safe and when you're not, and there goes my halo. And screw this job, seriously. And I take out the front one, which is actually the easier one to dodge. The back one actually requires perfect timing or you'll get hit. And somehow I still pull that off. And there's our first swirly cue. But anyway, hitboxes on these vines, you're never too sure if you're going to hit the Yint or not, so you try to give yourself a lot of breathing room. And that doesn't always work too well, because the game likes to throw a whole bunch of Yints at you in the same place. And that's it for part 2. Moving forward, they introduce moving platforms, and Yints moving vertically on vines. That is probably the biggest dick move that they introduce in this entire level, or world. As I said before, the hitboxes are hard to predict, and if they're moving vertically on the vines, it's very hard to figure out where you're safe and when you're not. Thankfully, for a majority of the vines, you can always just go above a lot of these guys and just skip a lot of the difficulties involved with climbing the vines with the Yints moving on them. And they obviously like to chain that stuff together. I have no idea how I didn't get the hit there. I got very lucky. And here's another non-secret secret. There's a free universal enema there. And a halo up there too. We really want that halo, as that'll give us at least a little bit of fighting chance in this level. And the patterns of these guys are moving a lot closer, they're moving a lot faster if you notice. Thankfully so far we only have to move down and not up. And these structure here I believe are the Yent Eggs, or like Yent Egg Sacs or something weird like that. Pretty big. So more of these guys to take out. You can get by this whole area without having to deal with those guys, but they're pretty tricky and they come in at a very awkward place where jumping over them will sometimes land you in the pit and sometimes won't. So it's just way easier just to shoot them. And another one of these fun jumps where two Yints are moving vertically in opposite directions. Thankfully I make it through it, and that is it for part 3. Now the last part of this level is actually easier in my opinion than the other parts. They do throw a couple more dick moves at you, but in general there's nothing all too tough here. More moving platforms and more horizontally moving Yints and stuff like that. But this part right here is probably the hardest part of the whole place, is moving up these vines while dodging these Yints is very tricky. You have to time it just right or you will get hit by them, and I've gotten far enough high up that I think I'm not going to get hit by a Yint, and then I still do. So it really sucks. The hitboxes really suck. I cannot stress that enough. And hey, more exploding platforms and things like that in places where you need to do fairly well-timed jumps. More vertical moving Yints, but here you can actually ignore the first one completely pretty much by just running into the vine. Second one you just need to time pretty well, so it's not too bad. And here I'm just trying to time this jump just right. Nothing up there. The music in this area is very mellow, which is actually pretty nice because it calms you down just a bit, considering how frustrating these levels can get. And I am getting very close to that Yint there. I should have been hit at least once there, or I thought I should have. But that's it for swirly cues. In some cases you can jump around those guys, but it's not recommended because sometimes they'll be out far enough that they'll hit you even if you jump to the right. And that should not have hit me. That Yint gave Klay a high five, basically. That's ridiculous. And more goodies up here. Once again, I think this should have been a secret as well, but it's not. But there's a universe enema and a fart clone up here. And that lets you skip the rest of these jumps by just aiming to the right. And this part's tricky as well, because they're moving pretty fast, they're very tight jumps. I have no more halo here. But it's not that bad. In general, the hard part of the level is done. One more Yint to shoot, because he's in a very weird place where if you jump over him you won't always hit the platform. So you might as well just take care of him by shooting him. And you can jump over these guys all day, they're not that hard to dodge. You just need to make sure you land on the platform appropriately. And that is it for Yent Eggs. Let's check out the bonus room. Now the bonus room here is a little different than most of the others, wherein they have multiple exits from the level, and I'll show you where that happens. So coming up here, there's 3 moving platforms that you can hop on. And if you're not careful, there's clay balls up top there, and all of them will port you out of the level. Basically, it's just a way to try to avoid hitting those balls. In this case, I got pretty much everything I wanted, so I can go ahead and get in there. And here's our next boss, Mr. Yints. Another pretty easy boss. The only difficulty here really is the fact that you're on this turret thing on a rail. You have to wait for him to finish his attacks, and then shoot him in the leg, and then shoot him in the face. He'll aim with his smaller hand, and then attack with his big hand. So as long as you're not where his small hand is pointing, you're good. He's very simple. Maybe the hardest boss so far, but still pretty damn easy for bosses in this game. And that is it. Alright, that is it for all the Yint levels. I'll see you folks next time.